So yeah, hi guys. Let me just introduce myself. So I'm a Parth. I'm a final year student at Delhi Technological University, and I'm pursuing IT branch. Also, like I am a product developer at a startup called Vakil Desk. So today's agenda is to learn about Copilot, right? Microsoft's latest studio, which is Copilot, which is a direct, I would say, better competition to normal IDEs. So I would like to begin with the presentation. All right, so let's just first see about the mission and goals of Copilot Studio. So first of all, we obviously have enhancing the developer's productivity. And how do we do that is by streamlining the software cycle with intelligent code suggestions, debugging support, and contextual guidances. Apart from that, we have faster accessibility for all. Like we can access Copilot Studio through any of the cloud-based services. It is actually a cloud-based app, so it can be accessed through any of the remote devices you might have. So it is really accessible for all. Apart from that, we have support collaboration. We can promote teamwork by integrating teams and version control systems like GitHub and Bitbucket easily. It comes with GitHub Copilot embedded, so which is great for collaboration as well, and as well as for AI recommended suggestions for code fillers. Okay, so now this is the main contents for the presentation today. And first of all, we're going to follow through the introduction, then we can see what's Copilot, and then following through key features, then enhancing productivity, moving on to the impact on code quality, collaboration, use cases, and then we will compare it with some traditional IDEs, and then we'll just see out some future aspects and future goals of Copilot Studio. So let's just move on. All right, so first of all, we have the introduction. What's Copilot? So Copilot is basically an IDE. IDE, as you know, what's IDE, where you use to code, where you just code and basically basically version control. Like you collaborate with others, you basically code. So visual, some of the examples for IDEs, I would say, are Visual Studio Code, which you might have been using. So this is a direct competition to Visual Studio Code, probably better than that, and we're going to see how. So introduction to Copilot Studio goes like, first of all, it has AI-driven tool for developers. GitHub Copilot, if you have heard about that, GitHub Copilot is a AI tool, which basically helps in betterment of coding and also AI enhanced coding. So GitHub Copilot is embedded in Copilot Studio. So that's what the second point is about, evolved from GitHub Copilot. And apart from that, it is designed to simplify coding and boost productivity. So how does it simplify coding? It simplifies coding by basically providing you with templated boilerplated code. It will boost your productivity by basically uh, building the stuff for you itself. So if you're supposedly building some use cases, if you're supposedly building some test cases, GitHub Copilot will help you build that automatically. So that is how you can actually increase the productivity. Apart from that, we can also focus on how it boosts developer efficiency. Efficiency by obviously how it pre-fills the code using the context awareness and natural language processing, how it will use that, how it will um, basically write all the templated stuff itself, saving a lot of time in writing boilerplate code. Apart from that, it also will autofill the functions you are trying to build based on the context of the surrounding code. So that is how it will uh, efficiently help to code with people. Apart from that, supports multiple programming languages. Obviously, it's an IDE, so supports multiple languages: C++, Python, Java, JavaScript, whatever you whatever you would like to code in. Apart from that, scalable across projects. So it can be used for version control. Apart from that, if you want to collaborate with people, so they can have the same project theme as you if you want to share the theme with them. So basically, it can be scalable across projects. It can be used if you want to use the same theme across different projects. Supposedly, if you have a theme, if you want a theme of building some kind of AI generated voice text. So that's if you want to use the same theme across different projects, it can be used for that as well. So that's how GitHub Copilot goes on. And if you move on to the next part, we have some challenges and how the studio helps for that. So first of all, we have common developer challenges. Um, for as a developer, what challenges can you face now? Managing complex projects, obviously, how you gonna manage different projects? Obviously, they can be in different languages, and how can you manage all of that at once? Apart from that, we have handling large code bases. So how do you manage basically large data sets? If you have large data sets, obviously code bases. If you have a lot of files regarding HTML templating, how are you gonna if you have a lot of static files, how are you gonna manage that? So those are some problems you can face. Apart from the debugging and testing, this is a repetitive task. You have to write test case after test case, and obviously you have to think about the test cases and also think about the use cases itself. That is a repetitive task which can be automated by AI actually. And one more, we have staying updated with new tools and technologies. Maybe the version of Python library you are using is now updated and it doesn't have the original functions you were known to. So getting updated with new tools and technologies is also a major thing you would like to uh, know as a developer. So now we'll see how Copilot Studio helps in all of these. First of all, we have AI-powered suggestions. Obviously, um, Copilot Studio has GitHub Copilot, so it is probably the best AI-generated generative AI model for coding. And so it helps in AI-powered suggestions, pre-fill code lines, inlines, and even it can build your templated code. So yeah, that's how AI-powered suggestions work in Copilot Studio. Apart from the automation of repetitive tasks, this is where we can solve the debugging and testing problem. If you want to write many test cases, supposedly your application is kind of big, so you have to write pretty much so many test cases. And I think it is a simplified process. Actually, it does not require that much innovation, I would say. So it is kind of a repetitive task. So I think AI would be great at doing this. Also, so yeah, so repetition, automation of repetitive tasks like uh, basically uh, building use cases and test cases can be done efficiently by GitHub Copilot as well. So apart from that, it is real-time problem solving. So if you are coding, basically, if you are writing a line, the GitHub Copilot and Copilot Studio will know about the context you are going to write about, and then it will pre-fill the code line you are going to try to write itself. So that's one more thing how it will help in real-time problem solving. So yeah, let's move on. So now we'll see about the key features of Copilot Studio. So first of all, AI-powered code suggestions, as we saw before, how GitHub Copilot will let you write code on its own, how it will let you build boiler templated code on its own, and how it will pre-fill the functions you are trying to build. It will even fill the functions, probably the whole files you want to try to fill, and all of that on its own using its AI-powered code suggestions. Apart from that, automated testing and debugging. Apart from building test cases, it can also run those test cases and debug itself, how it's going to analyze those test case results, and then it's going to analyze the output and input, and then it can automatically debug itself on the basis of the context of use cases and their results as well. Apart from that, we have data analysis. Data analysis like Copilot Studio has basically many tools for data analysis, performance metrics, uses data, uses memory, and all of the stuff you need to basically analyze what's happening. If you are training a machine learning model and your CPU is not running, maybe that's not training correctly, or you're not using what you want to really use. So data analysis can be a major part when you're coding, and I think it is one of the major features of Copilot Studio as well. Apart from that, we have code documentation and comments. So code documentation, basically Copilot Studio helps in documenting the code itself, documenting the whole code base. If you're building a project and you want to make the document, maybe that's a redundant task, maybe that's a boring task. So you probably want to have AI do it for you. So that's how code documentation works in Copilot Studio. The Copilot Studio will automatically create a documentation, proper documentation for your project, and also the comments. While writing the code, it will provide inline comments for you to easily understand that, and obviously for the other team members to understand that. So code documentation and comments is a great feature of Copilot Studio as well. Apart from that, we have workflow automation. So how does workflow automation work is, supposedly you're building, so there's a lot of steps in building and deploying a website actually. So if you're, the first step is obviously to build the project, write the code and stuff, and then we can move on to the deployment, then we can move on to the CI/CD pipelines, we can move on to Dockerization and all of that DevOps stuff as well. So there's a whole lot of workflow you need to require for web development as a whole. So that's where Copilot Studio can actually automate stuff. It can automate workflow. It can work with your CI/CD pipelines, whether you're using Jenkins, GitHub Lab, GitHub Actions, anything you are using. It will help in workflow automation. It will automatically build CI/CD pipelines for you. Although the feature is enhancing right now, it is improving right now. But for setting a basic CI/CD pipeline, it can be really efficient as well, because it is almost going to take no time, where a real person might take a week or two for setting up the same. So that is a great automation using Copilot Studio. So apart from that, we have API creation and management. Supposedly, if you are making some kind of API, REST APIs or any kind of API, you want to make sure it is secure. You want to make sure it works faster. It is optimized and efficient. So that stuff you need to keep in your mind while building the APIs. So Copilot Studio takes care of all of that. So if you want to make some secure APIs, if you want to make some efficient APIs with optimized methods and algorithms, Copilot Studio is one of the best thing you can use right now, because it will automatically build the most secure API possible using every kind of authentication you want it to use, and also any kind of optimization. If you want it to be like spreaded but faster, so it can basically you can optimize, configure it to your specific needs itself. So yeah, that's where Copilot Studio can really shine out. Okay, moving on. So these are just basic overview of how we can actually enhance productivity. First of all, real-time coding assistance. While writing code, you're gonna have pop-ups saying like what is actually happening in your code and what you are trying to basically do. So it will, yeah, again, context awareness, pre-fillment of code is also done by Copilot Studio. Apart from that, speeds up debugging, obviously how we can basically automate building test cases and use cases and also implementing them. And then we can then Copilot Studio can analyze the test cases on its own and also start the debugging process on its own as well, modifying the code to make it better and work well. Apart from that, reduce boilerplate coding. Boilerplate coding is, I think, one of the most tedious tasks when it comes to development part, and Copilot Studio takes care of it greatly. It will reduce the boilerplate code. It is gonna basically build all the boilerplate code for you. Also, it's gonna help you create better code if you want to supposedly build it according to some of your customization. So it will build boilerplate code according to your customization. So it is really customization configurable according to your specific needs as well. Apart from that, we have supports faster code writing. So how does that help? Basically, obviously, how you can reduce the time by boilerplate coding. And apart from that, if you are potentially writing some wrong code, it will alert you about how it can affect the quality of a project, how it can affect the quality of your code itself. So yeah, it also provides real-time alerts of how you are actually writing your code, and also would like to provide recommendations based on that. So the GitHub Copilot is like how it manages your code is really great. All right, so moving on to the next slide, we have Copilot Studio's impact on code quality. So now we know like Copilot is writing some code, but how is it really good? Is it really good? So we're gonna see about that now. First of all, Copilot writes cleaner and more consistent code. It is not going to mess up your code. It is not going to mess up your databases. It is not going to mess up your code bases. It will write cleaner code. It will write codes with inline comments. It will clarify what it is writing, and all of the stuff it is going to show. So basically, it is a very clean and more consistent code. It is not going to change its pattern or basically its theme from what it was writing before. It is always context aware. So the code it writes is cleaner and consistent, at par with any human writing code. So next point is that we can have bug detection. Obviously, if you are suppose you have written the code, but obviously there are some little bugs, like you missed a semicolon or something, like which can be um, very difficult to find actually, because in a large code base, just finding a semicolon is really a tedious task. So for bug detection, it can really help really quickly. Like it can analyze the whole code and try to analyze what's wrong with it. If there's some syntax error, it will fix the syntax error. If there's some optimization error, maybe some better algorithm can be used for optimizing the function you're using, so it can be used for that as well. So bug detection was one of the main impact on code quality. Built-in best practices, obviously, Copilot Studio uses the best practices and best standards to write the code for you. It is going to use the industry standards as well as very optimized code. It's for your code as well for your project. So it is going to use high quality code. It is not going to use some redundant if else code, if else statements and all of that. It is going to use optimized code for your project. Apart from that, unit test generation, as we have read this before, it can generate the unit tests on its own, and it can also run them on its own, also debugging it on the basis of results of those tests. So that's how unit test generation works. Automated code review suggestions is what you have written the code and giving the review basis on your code. So basically, if there's some potential uh, threat in our code, so GitHub Copilot Studio will know about that, and it will let you know how you can improve it, how you can further improve it, how can you prevent it in future. So it is truly an intelligent agent, I would say. Apart from that, optimized performance and refactoring assistance. So for optimized performance, we can obviously have like how it writes code, how it saves our time writing boilerplate code itself, how it can write most efficient and optimized code itself. So basically building a higher quality project. So that's how optimized performance is an impact on code quality. Apart from that, we have refactoring assistance. Refactoring assistance is how you can actually refactor your code, basically how you can modify your code according to the current requirements. Basically, supposedly, if uh, you have written a high quality code, but probably for some function, if you haven't written the code at par with other code, so Copilot Studio can actually know that and can recommend you how you can refactor your code to the certain needs and recommendations as well. So that's how those were the main impact on code quality. So we can move on to collaboration and knowledge sharing. So obviously you're building a project and working in a team, you need to collaborate and share your code base, share your knowledge, share what you're going to build next and all of that stuff. So for that, we need to have a strong collaboration and knowledge infrastructure for um, an IDE actually. So the main features for collaboration and knowledge sharing, we can have our syncs coding style across team. If you're writing in agile methodology, if you're using agile methodologies, it would try to sync the other teammate about it, and it would also promote him to use agile methodologies. Basically, if you're using some kind of theme, it is going to sync the theme across the teams. That's how it works. Reduces learning curve for new developers. So obviously, I think due to the incoming of LLMs and generative AI, I think coding has become pretty easier now, and also with special features offered by Copilot Studio, like automated testing from, I think it will manage the whole workflow on its own now. So I think it is a really reduced learning curve for new developers now. Apart from this, we have pair programming with AI. AI is used in almost every aspect in Copilot Studio, whether you're building test cases, whether you're building CI/CD pipelines, whether you are deploying the app, whether you are building some function or code. It is going to help with you. It is going to help you in every phase of a project. So that's how AI will help you. best practices templates. Uh, this again talks about how it's going to affect the code quality. It is going to use the best templates you can see in the industry being used. It is not going to use some beginner type template, or maybe some basic template. It is going to use some uh, industry standard templates, which are actually the best practices followed in the industry. So eventually contributing to a higher quality code for your project. So that's how best practices templates is going to help you in your project. Mentorship and peer reviews. Uh, as you know, you can collaborate and share the code bases with others. So if you're going to share the code with your teammates, if you're going to share the code with your seniors, they can recommend you and also review the code based on uh, your code. And also the Copilot Studio's AI, it can also review your code itself and tell if there are any potential alerts or dangers in the code, or maybe some kind of discrepancy in the code. So basically, Copilot Studio's AI can automatically mentor and review your code and also provide reviews according to that. Apart from that, we have integrated communication. Copilot Studio comes with inbuilt GitHub, inbuilt Git, so it is no problem. You're gonna have no problem in version control, um, pulling and pushing code on GitHub, and also maintaining a proper version history of your code. So that is very simplified with Copilot Studio as well. All right, so now we will see some use cases of Copilot Studio in real world development. So some use cases are teams use Copilot Studio for quicker release cycles. If you're going to build some project for a client who just wants it right now, like basically the deadline is so close that don't want to focus on you don't want to focus on development yourself. You just want to like build the code as fast as you can. So Copilot Studio can be used for that. Like we mentioned before, it can handle all the workflow in a development project. So how it can work from building to deploying to setting up pipelines, it can do all of that itself. So that's how you can help your team for quicker release cycles as well. Apart from that, we have rapid prototyping. If you want to build a prototype and not a product right now, if you want to build a prototype for your client, you just want to show him right now what plans you have in your mind for the project, you can build a prototype in a very quick time. So you can basically show him the crux of the project you want to build. So that is going to help you display the idea of a project basically. Apart from that, we have legacy code maintenance. Legacy code maintenance, how it's going to work, it is related to the documentation, how it's going to maintain its versions. Like I said, it is connected to GitHub on its own, like internally itself. So it is going to maintain version controls. It is going to maintain how the different versions works with different versions of the project works in the flow. And also it's going to maintain the documentation as well. It is going to maintain, it is able to generate a documentation of the project on its own, and that is not a basic documentation, that is a very detailed documentation about the whole project. And also yeah, that's how it helps in legacy code maintenance. Apart from that, we had AI driven analytics. If you want to know about your project, if you want to know about how it is basically performing, performance metrics, some kind of performance metrics like CPU usage, GPU usage, CPU memory usage, and all of that, how it happens, how it is affecting your code, it can be used for analyzing that as well. So apart from that, we have cross-platform development. Whether using a Mac, whether you are using Ubuntu, whether you're using Linux, whether you're using Windows. So you can actually use it for cross-platform development. It is accessible to all of the platforms available, and it can be used for developing on any kind of system you want. Apart from that, we have security enhancements like it helps to build secure code, just how we talked about in the API section. It will provide you with one of the most secure API codes, and how it can help you also alert about the dangers you have in your code, probably some discrepancies, and probably some part you're missing out on all of that. It can help you detect that previously. It will basically help you how you can better your code. So that's how security enhancements works. Apart from that, project documentation, again, how the project is documented on its own using Copilot Studio's AI, and how it is really a detailed documentation rather than a basic documentation, which can actually help. for clarifying the doubts for your team and as well as the future upcoming engineers for your team. All right, so now we can compare the Copilot Studio with some traditional IDEs. So obviously, first of all, the major part is AI tools, right? Copilot Studio has some insane AI tools that can be used for building code. It can be used for maintaining the whole workflow. It can be used for building the test cases, for debugging itself, for quality code suggestions, for security suggestions, and all of that. I think AI is insanely good for this Copilot Studio as well compared to what manual coding you have to do in other IDEs. I think yeah, so integrated AI is a really great advantage for Copilot Studio. Apart from that, we have seamless integration with GitHub. Maybe you're going to try um, pushing the code through manual ID and you're encountered with some kind of error, how it's trying to let you not push the code to the Git section. And now, how Copilot Studio handles it has a seamless integration with GitHub. It is going to tell you all the details about the connection between you and the Git link look like, and how you can basically solve the errors for GitHub. So it is actually a very simple process for maintaining version controls on GitHub using Copilot Studio. Apart from that, we have cloud-based with instant access and consistency compared to the local installation in traditional IDEs. So basically, Copilot Studio, as we talked about, it is a cloud-based platform. So you are not actually using your resources, but you are using Copilot Studio's resources. So it does not matter on which system you are. It does not matter on what configuration you are. You're going to have the same quality of code enhancement. You're going to have the same quality of AI tools in your system as compared to a system who is 10x better than yours. So it does not matter what system you are on. You're going to have the same consistency compared to local IDEs. Local IDEs will use your resources rather than cloud-based resources, so it will depend majorly on your system. So I think cloud-based system for Copilot Studio is a great plus point, and also it resource scalability as per project needs. So if you want to train some LLM models, right? You need to have some powerful GPUs or CPUs for that. So you can allocate resources according to your project's need. If you are just building some simple web app, so I think you don't need that much resources as compared to machine learning. So you can basically allocate resources based on your requirements for the project. Apart from that, it is accessible anywhere and device agnostic. Like we discussed before, the Copilot Studio is cloud based, so it is not using your resources, it is basically using cloud resources. So it is going to actually be accessible anywhere. Like it can be used to access uh, basically from any device itself too. You can access it from any of your devices using the cloud credentials, and it will work the same as it worked on your device. So that's how it is accessible anywhere for you. All right, so now we can discuss about some future scope of Copilot Studio. So first of all, we have new features on horizon. There are plenty of features that are also going to come to Copilot Studio. There are features like security enhancement. It's going to enhance the security even further. It is going to preemptly uh, probably it is trying to predict the errors you're going to make in the code if you are using some wrong practices in the code. So it there are very insane features that are up on the horizon for Copilot Studio coming up. We have more automation capabilities, like we have discussed about how it can automate almost everything, and now I think it is going to enhance further into the automation segment, how it's going to basically learn about more workflows, how it is going to learn about more workflows, how it is going to learn about different app workflows as well, how it's going to develop an Android app, how it's going to develop an iOS app. So it will eventually learn all the workflows, and it's going to help eventually in your better project building. Apart from that, we have enhanced AI for complex problem solving. So enhanced AI, like AI currently solves problems. Maybe it is not that efficient from for some complex problem. So AI is always going to advance, and enhanced AI will furtherly enhance this process of complex problem solving, how it can solve the problem more efficiently, and also providing more high quality code. That's how enhanced AI will work for us. For the next part, we have AI in software development, which is evolving role of AI in future projects. How AI is now used almost in every aspect of our lives. How it is embedded in almost every app. I think AI is really a part where we need to we need to tap in the power of AI. Actually, how we going to use it. We really need to basically utilize the power of AI now. So I think using evolving role of AI is really a significant part for your development cycle. Apart from that, we have advanced debugging and issue resolution. This is about the fact that it will predict your errors. Like there's a feature on the line which can help you detect errors preemptively. So how it's gonna detect the errors is basically what's the quality of code you're writing. Basically, it can predict the errors that you're going to face when you run this app in deployment. If it is going to predict the errors that you might face if you run this app without some configurations. So that's how advanced debugging and issue resolution will work for this feature. And apart from that, we have AI driven bug detection. How it's going to, yes, again, it's the same thing, like how it's going to detect the bugs in your code, how it's going to work upon the uh, debugging cycle, how it's going to work upon detecting the code, and how it's going to improve the debugging cycle as well. Maybe you will not have to write the code in the future itself. Like the process will be done wholly by Cobalt Studio, from the building aspect to the deployment aspect to even the debugging aspect is solely done by Cobalt Studio. So that's how fast Cobalt Studio is actually evolving, and I think it is really going to new heights. So yeah, apart from that, there's a news like Copilot Studio. If you want to access how Copilot Studio works, Copilot Studio has now a free plan. Actually, you can use up to 2,000 messages per month for your and 50 code generations per month as well. So you can test it out yourself and see how it works. And yeah, it is really a great tool. I would really recommend if you use that. So yeah, Copilot, you can actually access it on your device as well now. So yeah, thank you for the presentation. I think this was all, and uh, this was how the Copilot basically all about Copilot Studio and how it works. So yeah, thanks for the session actually.